Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello there. Just trying to get my earphones properly configured. How you doing? It's Friday. Yay. April 27th. And my headphones are pressing my earrings into my head and it hurts. There you go. Alrighty, guys. I don't know. Here we are. What are we going to do with it? I'm just looking to quickly on my email to see if anybody has sent me anything interesting, and it appears not. Okay. We have a guest coming in later in the program to talk about some of the impact of budget cuts on education. And there's plenty of impact to be had there. Specifically, we're going to be focusing on the arts and music education, which are so often deemed by numbskull school boards to be sort of extraneous, unnecessary, when every piece of research ever done shows that music education should be considered a core piece of anybody's educational base. But we can't seem to get that through our heads. And the Pittsburgh Public Schools in particular are showing that they don't get it. And we want to talk about that. We'll be talking to a music educator who was recently in Washington, D.C., lobbying congressman on this issue, and he's come away with a lot more facts, but facts often don't seem to have the power that they once did, and that is something, of course, that we have talked about often on this program. Somebody the other day sent me an obituary, in fact, and this was first appeared in the Chicago Tribune. I'm a little surprised I haven't seen it elsewhere. It's a rather long obituary, and yet it is the obituary of someone or something that is worthy of a long obituary. So allow me to share some of it with you, because what I was just speaking of brought me directly to it. I was speaking about facts and how they are so often ignored by policymakers who find them pesky and swat them away like so many annoying gnats buzzing around their heads. So this is the obit that I saw, and it is simply this. It is headlined, Facts, 360 BC to AD 2012. In memoriam, after years of health problems, Facts has finally died. A quick review of the long and illustrious career of facts reveals some of the world's most cherished absolutes. Gravity makes things fall down. 2 + 2 = 4. The sky is blue. But for many, facts' most memorable moments came in simple day-to-day realities, from a child's certainty of its mother's love to the comforting knowledge that a favorite television show would start promptly at 8 p.m. Over the centuries, facts have become such a prevalent part of most people's lives that Irish philosopher Edmund Burke once said, "Facts are to the mind what food is to the body." To the shock, however, of most sentient beings, facts died Wednesday, April 18th, after a long battle for relevancy with the 24-hour news cycle, blogs, and the internet. Though few expected facts to pull out of its years-long downward spiral, the official cause of death was from injuries suffered last week when Florida Republican Representative Allen West steadfastly declared that as many as 81 of his fellow members of the U.S. House of Representatives are communists. Facts held on for several days after that assault, brought on without a scrap of evidence or reason, before expiring peacefully at its home in a high school physics book. Facts was 2,372 years old. "It's very depressing," said Mary Pgh, a professor of English at NYU and author of A History of the Modern Fact. "I think the thing Americans ought to miss most about facts is the lack of agreement that there are facts. This means we will never reach consensus about anything. Tax policies, presidential candidates will never agree on anything." Facts was born in ancient Greece, the brainchild of famous philosopher Aristotle. Facts was viewed as a universal principle. Facts was viewed as universal principles that everyone agrees on, or shared assumptions. Through the 19th and 20th centuries, facts reached adulthood as the world underwent a shift toward proving things true through the principles of physics and mathematical modeling. There was respect for scientists as arbiters of the truth, and facts itself reached the peak of its power. But those days would not last. People unable to understand how science works began to question facts. And at the same time, there was a rise in political partisanship and a growth in the number of media outlets that would that was a Freudian slip, that would disseminate information, rarely relying on feedback from facts. Yes, Pgh said, there was an erosion of any kind of collective sense of what is true or how you would go about verifying any truth claims. Opinion has become the new truth. And many people who already have opinions see in the news an affirmation of the opinion they already have, and that confirms their opinion as fact. Though weakened, facts managed to persevere through the last 2 decades, despite historic setbacks that included President Bill Clinton's affair with Monica Lewinsky, the justification for George W. Bush's decision to invade Iraq, and the debate over President Barack Obama's citizenship. Facts was wounded repeatedly throughout the recent GOP primary campaign, near fatally when Michelle Bachmann claimed a vaccine for sexually transmitted disease causes mental retardation. In December, Facts was briefly hospitalized after MSNBC's erroneous report that Mitt Romney's campaign was using an expression once used by the Ku Klux Klan. But friends and relatives of facts said it was Representative West's claim that dozens of Democratic politicians are communists that was simply too much for the aging concept to overcome. As the world mourned, some were unwilling to believe facts was actually gone. Professor Gary Allen Fine of Northwestern University said, facts aren't dead. If anything, there are too many of them out there. There's been a population explosion of facts. Fine pointed to one of facts' greatest battles, the debate over global warming. To some, Fine's insistence on fact survival may seem reminiscent of the belief that rock stars like Jim Morrison or Elvis Presley are still alive. Facts is survived by two brothers, rumor and innuendo, and a sister, emphatic assertion. Services are alleged to be private. In lieu of flowers, the family requests that mourners make a donation to their favorite super PAC. That obit was in the Chicago Tribune, written by Rex Hupke. Rest in peace. It ain't too far off. Yeah, which is a fact, I think, and it's also well, as is so much that we talk about these days, it's depressing. It's depressing. The famous quote that you hardly ever even hear anymore, that I think it was Senator Patrick Moynihan who first uttered it, that you are entitled to your own, everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but you are not entitled to your own set of facts. Because facts are universally agreed upon realities. And we simply can't, we refuse to agree on just about everything. So we find ourselves at this pretty pass. Oh, my. I saw the funniest, and I'm sure there were other funny ones, but when I was in California, I saw a headline that said, what did it say? World peace evicted, or ejected. World peace ejected. And I thought, this is funny. Now, it was in the sports section, so I did know what it was about. It was about a basketball player, a certain basketball player who changed his name to Meta World Peace. And so on the back of his jersey, it says World Peace. So, World Peace is up and down the court. World Peace is passing off. And World Peace apparently threw an elbow that gave somebody a concussion, and he has been ejected. And then I believe he's been suspended for some time. Some of you may recall World Peace's earlier nomenclature, which was Ron Artest. He is a Los Angeles Laker. But I think that is such a funny idea. I mean, they could all, if they all did it, you could imagine the play-by-play could be hysterical. But that is what it's. He did legally change his name, and so the back of his jersey, it does say World Peace. But just so you know, World Peace has been ejected, and I believe suspended for 7 games. Yeah, World Peace in the penalty box. World Peace on the bench. World Peace. I don't know where I got this. I mean, I can tell from the print it's the New York Times, but I don't know. Somebody calling me? Mm-hmm. Yes? Okay, hang on a minute. Hello? Hello, caller? Hi?
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
What I was calling about is, I want to see what you think of this. These, all about the student loans they're talking about, all these kids own these loans. when is do you think someday there's going to be an attorney that's going to take one of these schools to court and sue them? I mean, for telling the kids, having these jobs, they're not there.
Mm-hmm.
Every year they get out, and there's only so many college jobs. Like one friend told me, does anybody go to work anymore? Do they all go to the college? I mean, you only have so many college jobs. They need to close down some of these colleges, the way I feel about it. That's my opinion, though. I mean, it's just a big business, and it's false hope to the kids.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I got to say. Thank you.
That's a provocative thought you've thrown out. I don't think there's too many colleges because kids are told today, you got to have a college education, which is not completely true. You generally would be wise to get education after high school, and that could be vocational education, which increasingly I think is a smarter road to take, or to learn a trade, which is, I think, a smarter way to go. But the cost of education is obscene. And I don't know, and I have never heard anybody explain to me why it has increased at a rate higher than, as far as I know, any other service and or commodity. Do you know anything else that literally goes up year to year by as much as 5, 6, 7, 8%? I mean, if that were the case, you'd be paying, $25 for a dozen eggs. It's some model has broken down here. And it is really, really failing the students and young people, because you cannot. I mean, I don't even know where to start when I talk about the impact. It further creates this growing chasm between the haves and have-nots. The rich and the near rich are able to afford all of the help that their children need to get into the better schools. And make no mistake, there is a hierarchy, right? And you can even ask whether that is warranted. There is a hierarchy. And there is no such thing as a level playing field as children born into this nation, funnel into our very, very screwed up educational system. And a lot of the screwed up part of it has to do with the funding of it. So that if you live in a relatively well-to-do area, your children probably will go to a relatively well-to-do school. If you live in a relatively poor area, odds are your children are going to go to a relatively poor school. How is that not a kind of economic segregation? How is that not apartheid? How is that not the most ludicrously unegalitarian system that, George Wallace could have dreamt it up? It's insane. And we know it, and we do nothing. We do nothing. And then these kids go to college. And colleges have changed. Colleges, when I went to them, my sense was that it wasn't a vocational school. My idea was college was supposed to broaden my mind. Isn't that an old-fashioned idea? I was supposed to take classes that made me think, that broadened my horizons, my perspectives, my opportunities, that made me, frankly, a more interesting human being. And in doing this, I would find things that interested me. I might find a passion. And then I would seek out more courses in that area. And when I got out, I would find a job somehow. Caller, go ahead.
Yes?
Yes? Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Jarrod from CMU.
Jarrod from CMU, who labors in the broken system.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so what the hell, Jarrod, is going on, and who do we blame? We always like to blame someone.
Yes, well, there's several. Well, I would have two thoughts about it. The thing that I have been seeing a lot of, just in the last 10 years, is that the federal government and the state governments have all been slashing almost every year the funding for colleges and universities.
So there is no agreement anymore that education is a communal value and that the public should, in fact, support it.
Correct, and there's a growing view in the Republican, I shouldn't say Republican, but among many conservatives, that the government should get out of the higher ed business altogether. They don't talk about it very much because I don't think that the vast majority of voters actually believe that.
Well, how can they not believe it when you can actually see what's happening here in Pennsylvania? It is quite clear that Corbett and the Republicans are intending to essentially create a situation where the so-called public educational, higher education institutions will have no choice but to become private. They're privatizing them.
I agree, but I would say that unless your kids are... Well, first of all, I don't think that Corbett and them... This is not something they give all kinds of coverage when they're out campaigning and that sort of thing. But when you look at what am I trying to say? Their long-term points of view that they have given on this topic. It is that that the government should not be funding what they often refer to behind the scenes as government schools.
Oh, well, that's a way to demonize them, of course. So that's and it happens enough in so many states, and as states, as the tuition, they got to get the money from somewhere. And I know a lot of schools, one of the things that they've been doing is internationalize their enrollment. Yes.
Such that, wealthy fat cats from Abu Dhabi or, Qatar or, China, they can send their kids to, University of Michigan or, wherever, and they pay the full shot. But of course, with every slot they take, it's not, the benefit to the local students diminishes year in and year out. So it is.
Do you have any sense what percentage of, let's say, the undergraduate student body at your school might be international?
It's the last time I checked, it's 19%.
Wow, almost a fifth.
Well, I had somebody talk to me the other day who thought it was 50%. It was like, well, no, it's only 19%.
But growing.
Yes.
But growing.
And the other thing that you see is like what CNU is doing is having campuses that they're developing overseas, like in Qatar. The Carnegie Mellon and a whole bunch of other big name schools have I believe it's called University City.
Yes, but
Qatar.
Right, but Jarrod,
but this ties in with what you were talking about earlier as to why you went to college in the first place. I think that there's a real misunderstanding about the strength of America's university system. Because when you look at what it is that's being stressed in primary ed, it's like, reading and writing and testing. Okay, that's what it is now. And you look at, people like Thomas Friedman who say we need to be churning out more engineers.
Right.
Well, the thing that makes American education so unique, and it's why people from all over the world send their kids here, is because of the liberal arts dimension to it.
Which we're starting to destroy.
I know. It's kind of like we're kind of running away from that through our cuts in arts and history and literature and English and all these other traditionally liberal artsy kind of programs.
Any student who goes to school, college now, and is asked, what's your major, and says something like English literature or medieval history is looked at like, what?
What?
Why? What are you doing that for? There's no money in it. There's no future in it. And in fact, there is
Try on art history.
Yeah, right. You know what?
The thing about it is that what liberal arts education does is it teaches creative and critical thinking. Which no other system in the world does.
Oh, posh. Nobody has any sense of the value of that, Jarrod. And so,
I know.
And what's amazing is that the people who run the universities, who are making these choices, like to get rid of so many of the humanities courses and the classics, is that they should know better.
Yeah. But, you look at who gets appointed these days to head up. And I'm not making any commentary specifically about Carnegie Mellon in this regard. I don't know the current president at all on this score.
But
in terms of like across the board, you look at who's getting who becomes president of universities these days. It's managers.
It's people out of the business school, the law school.
Yeah. I can't remember the last one I saw that actually came from anything even remotely resembling a liberal arts background.
Well, why can't? So why, if all these super rich people in the world sending their kids to our schools pay full fare, why don't they use that to subsidize the education for Americans so they don't have to raise the rates on the homegrown kids?
In many ways, it's an educational version of what you see on the
in state schools
in the United States generally.
Yeah,
is that you use new revenue to cut taxes rather than to make programs better.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of what we see when you look at the budget priorities of the Republicans. You say if there's you sell off some parkland in Pennsylvania, or you privatize something, or you sell some assets in California, or something like that.
Yeah.
Rather than using that money to bolster your programs, you use it as a justification for further cutting taxes.
Maybe what we're starting to see...
in many ways, it's the same thing.
But Jarrod,
you have new money coming in from these foreign students, but rather than using... And it's not an absolute thing. Some of that money does go for scholarships and such, for local students and such. But when you look at it as the larger phenomenon, it's like, Corbett will look at that and say, oh, good, now we can cut more spending that we would have put towards the higher ed.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe what we're seeing, though, is the self-fulfilling prophecy of the downgrading of a liberal education, because more and more Americans who now are in positions of power and authority and policy making didn't receive much of a liberal education. They received this more, this more vocational or business, professional-oriented education that universities seem to be offering now. And so we're really losing.
Well, I would say that some of it starts at the primary school level, where there's such an emphasis on testing and math and English.
Yeah.
And I've got nothing against math and English, but the pedagogical model that's being embraced there is, it's moving so much away from a kind of creative / critical liberal arts point of view.
It's just it's narrowing and narrowing and narrowing.
It can become legendary how many music and art programs have been dumped.
Well, in fact, that's what we're talking about.
The degree to which history has become kind of it becomes a course that is freighted with all kinds of other pedagogical kinds of bells and whistles.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, how can we make this more interdisciplinary?
More relevant.
Well, it's like...
More relevant. You're going to have to defend. You're going to have to defend the very idea of bothering to know history. It's just it's unbelievable. In fact, I'm going to be talking to a music educator in the next half hour.
We're priming you for that conversation.
Yes, that's exactly what we're doing. This is seamlessly, serving as a preface to his concerns, which of course are huge. I don't know. The dumbing down of America continues. I remember.
I would say that I have a little more hope than you do, because I think that the bankruptcy of the testing regime in primary schools is becoming more and more obvious with each passing year.
Yeah.
And I sometimes have posted on my own blog they have these international measures for the best schools in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And Wall Street Journal had one, I think, a year or so ago. Actually, a couple of years ago now, where they rated that the best schools in the world are in Finland. And one of the reasons that the Finns are so successful in their teaching is that they have virtually no supervision in terms of the pedagogy of their teachers. They just let them
do their thing.
Teach.
Yeah.
They don't have any. They have nothing mandatory, hardly at all, that they tell their teachers that they have to do.
Wow.
It's like, okay, you can just go and teach.
My sister has always
said that they have.
Yeah, my sister has always said that the reason you go to get an education is not so you're there? Yeah, but you can't hear me, right?
Huh. Where'd you go?
Okay, I thought you couldn't hear me. Okay, let him go then. Whatever. But the fact is Susan often said that the reason you get an education is not so your head will be filled with a bunch of extraneous facts out of context, which you then, forget 99% of. You get an education so that you learn how to learn. And that's what we've lost sight of. And that's what Jarrod's talking about. The reality is that you have to know how to learn. You have to know how to think, how to be critical. And we're moving away from that. There's such rampant foolishness and stupidity afoot. And so kids go off to these colleges where they're, and I didn't even get into, with this accumulating unbelievable amounts of debt. And they can never really begin their lives. They're essentially indentured servants. What is the difference? They have to postpone their adult lives to work off their indenture. And they are indentured to the school they went to. If you ever bothered to crunch the numbers, I don't think the investment makes a hell of a lot of sense for probably a majority of the kids who carry these burdens. This is a system broken. We'll talk more with somebody who's in the middle of it, again, fighting desperately to turn the tide after this.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
Pittsburgh City Paper's annual restaurant guide is available now. Plus Lily Tomlin, Roy Ayers, The Raven, and All-American Rejects. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com. Sewickley Med Spa provides the most advanced treatments in aesthetic medicine, including Botox, Restylane, Juvederm, Radius, medical-grade chemical peels, and sclerotherapy using a sclera for spider vein correction. We offer a relaxing environment and only the best products for your complete satisfaction. Conveniently located at 435 Broad Street in downtown Sewickley. Call 412-259-8628 to find out about this month's specials. Sewickley Med Spa.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
Okay, welcome back. Joining me is Mark Despotakis. I pronounced that right, didn't I?
Close.
Close!
Yes, I'll give you A for effort. Despotakis.
I've always said Despotakis when I've
Yes.
seen it.
Here's a funny story about Despotakis. When I was in high school and I took public speaking class, the teacher was very eccentric, and she insisted that my name should be Despotakis instead. And she says it sounds more like a superhero, so I think that would be the right way to pronounce it. So that's actually normally what I get. But no.
Okay, but so the accent is on what?
It's Despotakis.
Despotakis.
Yes.
Now, whether or not I ever say that again in the course of this interview,
Call me Mark.
we shall see. Okay, I'm going to call you Mark. Mark is here because he works in the field of music education. He is a member of an organization that works mightily to continue music education in this country. He was just at was it a convention of sorts in Washington, D.C.?
No, it was actually just a small, about 30 members of our industry there lobbying.
So you're a lobbyist?
Yes.
You know.
Not officially, but we work with a lobbying firm,
But you're not one of those deep-pocketed lobbyists.
No,
not at all.
No.
Not at all. You've also been a music teacher. You've been a woodwinds instructor. You've been a television news director. You've worked at CNN.
Yes. And now I'm on Lynn Cullen show.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's the pinnacle.
It is the
You might
pinnacle.
as well just
I'm folding
hang
up
it up
after this. That's right.
Hang it up. Quit while you're ahead. Okay. I don't know. I'm already worked myself up into a lather here because we've been talking about just the unbelievable stupidity of those that make decisions about core curricula, about what students should know, what they should be taught, the value of certain courses of study. And did you see the Post-Gazette today?
I didn't get a chance to read it.
Well, good. Don't. There's something in here. There. Right on the front page. Pitt closes some areas of study to save money. Guess what goes? Classics, German, religion.
And this is a university.
This is a university!
It's creeping up to that level.
This is a university. This is a university. Now, used to be,
frightening.
you went to college
That's right.
to study the classics. And this is what they're saying. Meh. They're not throwing anyone out who's there, but then they're sort of putting everything on hold.
Wow.
I know. It takes your breath away.
You don't even know what to say. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
It takes your breath away. And, of course, they're blaming state budget cuts. And there's no doubt that that is having a huge impact. And that is what you're seeing when school districts
Absolutely.
are getting just killed by these budget cuts.
It's difficult decisions for the school districts.
Yes,
I mean,
it is.
I would not want to be an administrator.
No.
So I have a hard time, pounding on those people and blaming them because they're in a very difficult spot too.
It's like King Solomon's,
Sure.
he cut the baby in half. I mean, what are you supposed to do?
That's right. And part of what we have done at the national level is talk about this in Washington, D.C., and we go with the message of saying, okay, so we put No Child Left Behind in the Bush administration. And there were some good things in there, but there were a lot of unintended consequences of No Child Left Behind. No Child Left Behind is just another name for the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which was enacted decades ago.
This brought all that testing stuff in.
It created this
teach to the test.
Teach to the test culture. So things were squeezed out. Okay. Again, there were some good things in it, but now we are way down the line from reauthorization. And it has not been reauthorized.
Right.
So we have been fighting for years to say, please reauthorize this. And every year there's an excuse. This year it's because it's an election year, because nothing's going to happen in Washington. And then who knows what happens next year when we see who's elected, because, if Obama is reelected, then I think there's a better chance for reauthorization because he's already gone through with some of his agenda, and he can continue with it. If Romney is elected, we don't know what will happen because he could start over with another piece of his agenda.
Well, he wants government out of education altogether.
Well, then
I think.
Well, that's.
Yeah.
Well, okay. That said, anyone that we talk to in Washington, on either side of the aisle, they don't say, oh, we hate music.
Oh, no, of course not.
And they realize the value of it, and they realize that it should stay in law. It's part of the law already. The problem is, how do you test a music class on a standardized test? You can't. And you can't test an art class on a standardized test. Hence, it's one of the unintended consequences.
Okay, so it doesn't fit into their little teach to the test model.
Even though every statistic...
But even before that, it was under attack.
Well, this is true.
No, people don't comprehend. It's considered, the sprinkles on top of a sundae. It's something special, and you don't need it. It is never considered a core part of the core curricula.
Well,
people's
by
heads.
law it is.
By law?
By law, it is part of the core curriculum. However, that in federal law. What happens then is it goes to the states, and the states have their own way of interpreting it. So I don't know exactly what the Pennsylvania Department of Education says, but it's very vague for what they require for school districts to do. So it's easy to cut. It's easy to scale back what we've been used to having.
And still say we have a music curriculum.
Exactly.
You know about this, what goes on in Venezuela? You know about this guy?
El Sistema, absolutely.
El Sistema. Do you guys know about this? Unbelievable. It's really the brainchild of one guy who used to be, he's an economist. He served in the government, economist. He was a member of parliament. He was the culture minister of Venezuela. And he came up with this system in which literally hundreds of thousands of children in Venezuela, and usually from the poorest areas, receive unbelievable training in classical music.
Absolutely. Their youth orchestras there.
They have over 500.
Unbelievable.
They have over 500 orchestras made up of children that would blow your socks off. They're so good. You're seeing internationally recognized musicians and conductors coming out now of Venezuela, out of all of this
program.
So they've been doing this since 1975, and have produced literally generations of talented musicians. But more than that, these young people they're being given something that is beyond, you cannot compute what they're given. The forever gift of being able to pick up an instrument and play beautifully.
I think most people who teach music education don't expect that every one of their students is going to be a conductor or what. That's not what it's about. There are so many byproducts of it that cannot be measured, and that goes back to the earlier point. Social skills, learning about your culture, all of these things that
teamwork. You can't be part of it.
That's right.
Or, let alone the studies that show that kids who start learning music and knowing how to read it do. I mean, this is. You can actually do better in what, math?
They do better in math and science. They do better on SAT scores. The numbers are all out there.
Everybody knows it. Nobody contests it.
Attendance rates are higher for those students, especially in economically disadvantaged areas. Especially.
Drives me crazy.
It is. It
Give a child an instrument, and even though they don't have anything at home, and they can carry that instrument home, and they can play and make this beautiful music and feel an ownership of it, and think of the creativity. It's mind-boggling.
And be a part of something bigger than yourself.
Bigger.
Yes.
Absolutely. You know it. I know it.
Yes.
Everybody gives lip service to it and, shakes their head, as you said. Everybody loves music. But what's the first thing they cut? So
That's right.
Your company deals with school districts all over
Western Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. What are you finding out?
Well, that some districts are making some small cutbacks. Some programs are thriving. There was an article in the Pgh, or it wasn't the Pgh. I saw it online yesterday. I think Pine Richland is talking about cutting a couple of high school music theory and an elementary class, a piano class or something like that. Affluent district. Okay, so it is happening everywhere. Some districts are lucky enough
to have... But the poorest districts are the ones that must be
The poorest districts are generally the ones that are hammered, and those are the places that we see that it is working so well. I can cite specific examples of band programs where these kids come to school because of what is happening in that band program, because of what these kids are getting out of being a part of this band that maybe goes out and competes or goes out to the football games or festivals or whatever. They're part of something. They're getting out of their community that they may never even get out of their community. Even if it's, across the river, they're getting out of their community. They're seeing other students who are doing what they're doing.
Well, you took the kids when you were at, Baldwin?
I was at Baldwin for 13 years.
We went to the Macy's
Thanksgiving Day Parade
in New York.
Yes, we were at the Bahamas twice.
That's for some kids, that's maybe the experience of a lifetime.
And what was interesting about the Bahamas trip, I remember we did these little, using my background in TV, we did these little video vignettes, like I did little packages with stories, and I interviewed the kids. And we'd talk about what was your favorite thing about the trip, or what did you not realize would happen, or what were you most excited about flying on an airplane?
Wow,
because they would have never had that experience. So, again, it's not about making sure you have every note right that you play in the song.
No.
Of course, that's important, but it's about these other life experiences that music opens up for you. You're a part of your community. I walked through the cultural district as I came up here today. Look at all of these great things that we have that now students may never have even thought about participating in or being a part of, but because they have some experience in it, hey, I'll go check out the symphony, or I'll go check out a play.
And so I think a lot of people have this sense of, this is not something the public schools need to do because children can always go take lessons. I mean, there's piano teachers, there's violin teachers. I mean, I took private lessons. I went to a public school that had a very minimal music, but we had an orchestra. Hey, you wouldn't want to have heard it. We had a band. We had a chorus, but that's it. We didn't have any individual instruction.
The private lessons in this day and age
are expensive.
They're expensive, and there are less students than ever taking them.
Really?
It's a monetary issue. It's part of it. But that when we have all of this data and information that shows why it's a value, there is absolutely no reason that a school should not be offering it. Because if they're worried about testing in these other subjects, well then if you keep a music curriculum alive, these other subjects are going to take care of themselves.
I didn't follow that.
Well, okay. Music education raises test scores in science and math and keeps the kids coming to school. So if you're going to keep that curriculum going, it's going to help the other things that you're more worried about, or that they're more worried about.
Okay. We're going to take a break,
okay.
and we'll come back. My guest is Mark Despotakis.
Close.
Ah, dang it!
Takis.
What? Jeez. Despotakis. Should be Takis. Despotakis.
I'll work on changing it for you.
Although he's been Despotakis in my heart for years and years and years. We're talking about the value of music, education, and you could add to that arts and the classics and half those classes that Pitt just decided to jettison. God, we're going to hell in a handbasket after this.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
If your walls could talk, what would they say?
I have held 4 generations of photographs.
I display 10 cuckoo clocks, all set to the wrong time.
I have had dishes thrown at me. I have been drawn on, cleaned, drawn on, cleaned, drawn on.
I have caused the gradual decline of a child's IQ.
I have given a 4-year-old a speech impediment.
I am the reason a first grader constantly yells out.
Just because you can't see lead paint doesn't mean it's not on walls, doors, windows, and sills. Today, lead paint poisoning affects over 1 million children. If your home was built before 1978, your family could be at risk. Let's make all kids lead-free kids. Log on to leadfreekids.org or call 800-424-LEAD.
I am the root of a child's violent behavior.
Brought to you by the Coalition to End Childhood Lead Poisoning, EPA, HUD, and the Ad Council.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on tickets to the ballet, opera, city theater, science center, symphony, history museum, and the Carnegie Museums. bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's only online deal site where the deals don't expire. bergbargains.com.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn@pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
All right, we are back with Mark Despotakis.
All right.
Yee-haw!
All
Third
right.
time is a charm.
Good job.
And we have a call, so
All
I'm going
right.
to ask you to get those on, Mark, and hope the level set okay. Caller, go ahead, please.
Yes, my name is Clarence from Canonsburg.
Yeah, hi, Clarence.
Hi. I just wanted to, when you were talking about the band and how important it was in Baldwin, being from Cannon McMillan, and I think anyone who ever graduated from Cannon McMillan High School, where they hear Big Mac Band before they start, it chills up their spine.
Absolutely.
So much a part of the school. You know, before the football games, before the parade, they would scream, Big Mac Band, and the drums would start, and you get chills.
Absolutely. There's a great sense of pride at so many schools from that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we've played down there several times when I was at Baldwin. We've been there.
Yeah, Baldwin was one
Absolutely.
of our, So that's basically all I wanted to add was the importance of Cannon McMillan. And, of course, I'm an artist, and the art program at Cannon Mac, when I was in high school was what kind of led me into my, art career.
But, and how is the art, are you aware if the art program is as good as it was when you were there?
Better.
It's
actually better.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
well,
they really, they have a couple really good teachers in the past, probably 20 years or so who kept it going and actually expanded it outside of the school into the community and did different things. So it's actually better.
It's a growing school district.
Pardon me?
It's a growing school district.
Oh, it's a matter of fact, I'm thinking it's getting too big.
And so it's a growing tax base, too. So
exactly.
That's how
I think
that can
for
happen.
the first time in so many years, they raised the mills. It hasn't been raised in so long, but I think they're starting to raise it now.
Well,
the fact that we have South Point sitting in the middle of this place is another, is a plus.
Well, because of, you know what you can thank for
Marcellus
all that?
Shell.
Marcellus Shell! Yeah.
That's true.
Oh, yeah, I'm very aware of that. It's a gas.
Yeah, it's a gas. Thanks, Clarence.
You're welcome. Okay.
Bye.
Oh, okay.
It's a gas.
Oh, he's right. there's a difference there. And there's a pride that comes from it, which is great.
Right.
And it's that happens in a suburban school district, and that program can keep growing it because there's a lot of people moving into that area.
Okay, so you said suburban. Now, there is a little good information about more people starting to move into urban areas too, but it is urban districts, and I mean, how much are you able to speak specifically to what you see in the Pittsburgh?
In the Pittsburgh Public Schools, we've all heard about the budget shortfalls in the district. We've heard that they're closing schools.
And I know I got involved in this thing at Capra where they were, and that is a school of the arts. Right. And they were even going to rip them all apart, and they did.
So what's happening is, there's all these teacher furloughs. Okay, again, money is the issue. So I've spoken to several teachers in the city of Pittsburgh schools, and what's happening is, here's how it works right now in the city of Pittsburgh. Every student receives a class in general music, meaning they might...
That's something every child has to take.
Yes, and that is generally how it works in all school districts. Okay, so some are receiving it weekly, some are not receiving it weekly, just based on, that's the way it is, and teacher availability and scheduling in the schools, Then the district owns musical instruments, clarinets, trumpets, violins. The district owns them. There are instrumental music teachers who then go into the schools, and in addition to these general music courses, students can choose to participate in the band or orchestra program. One teacher might have 2 schools, 3 schools that they go to throughout the week. The district is now painting the picture and saying, we are going to make this more equitable for everyone. And we are going to make it so that there is a teacher in every school, a music teacher in every school. And now every student will receive general music once a week. Because again, there are some that were not receiving it once a week. However, there will no longer be an instrumental music teacher. So that general music teacher, if their schedule permits, will teach instrumental classes.
Assuming they can. I mean...
they can.
But how can they teach all instruments? What do you mean?
Because when you have a music education degree, you're certified to teach all the instruments.
What?
Yes, absolutely.
You mean you know how to play anything?
Yes. Generally, a music education major would specialize in one instrument, that was their instrument, but you would be certified to teach all instruments. Yes.
Even strings and woodwinds and
you might be better at one.
You are kidding. Well, I just have gotten a great deal more respect for the music teachers of the world.
Yes.
Can
and
you
imagine
do that?
doing that. No, because I don't have a music education degree. So my degree's in communication. So when I taught it, I just did the woodwind.
So you're a woodwind guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So no, they go through specific training and they learn all of these instruments.
Okay, so now what's going on, you're saying, in Pittsburgh Public Schools is, so now every student in the Pittsburgh Public School system will be getting a general music class weekly. But the thing that's going to be taken away is these...
In some schools.
In some schools will be these more specialized teachers coming in.
Right, because what's going to happen is the general music teacher who has that building will now have to, anytime they have free in their schedule...
How can they have free if they have an entire building to do general music?
That's a good question. In a K-5 building, which some of the district schools are, it may work. In a K-8 building...
Not a chance.
Not a chance. So we're saying this is equity, but we're taking this away. Mind you... The district owns the instruments. The district owns all of these musical instruments. So now you're going to have less students playing them. You've invested in this capital of owning the instruments.
Instruments aren't cheap. So
they are not.
So the Pittsburgh schools, I can't even imagine how many trombones they own or violins or whatever. But you're saying they
So now you're going to have some sitting and being just unused, collecting dust.
When they used to be used because... You had teachers who could...
And you have a teacher who's running between, 2 and 3 buildings a week. And, you're making the lesson schedule work.
I'm willing to bet that volunteers would come in and do those classes. You wouldn't like that.
Well, no, because you want a certified music teacher in there who has the skills. But to take a step beyond that, the scheduling is going to play into the problem there. because now you have this one. When are you going to be able to pull them out? You know, they're changing. I forget, what their fancy title is for how they're changing the delivery model, I believe is what they're calling it. And so that all the details are not out there. Now, this is not only affecting the elementary level, this is going to affect the high school level.
Okay, but everything you're saying makes sense. Oh, it's over. And then you gave me this information that says that the U.S. Department of Education says that 94%, that's big, of elementary school programs have classes specifically for music. 91% of secondary schools have classes specifically for music.
Yeah.
For music.
And we're going in the other direction.
We're going in the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
We're pulling away. We're going to help drop that national average down.
And we're so proud of Kappa.
Oh, yeah, it's our little gem. So world leaders come here and we say, hey, come to Kappa. Michelle Obama says, hey, come to Kappa.
But what's going to happen when you're destroying what is under it? What's going to be coming to Kappa? If you're taking away this instrumental program,
there's going to be no kids to feed into it.
There's going to be no kids.
Unless they're rich and have parents who can give them private lessons.
And there was even discussion of starting these lessons in the elementary school later. Well, Kappa, I believe, you can start there in the 6th grade. Mm-hmm. So that means that potentially you would have 1 year on an instrument before you could try to get into Kappa. Okay, 1 year on an instrument is not enough to have one student be set apart from the pack to know that they could thrive in a place like Kappa.
So
people need to ask questions.
Well, what can we do?
People need to be, if your student is in the Pittsburgh Public Schools, you need to ask some questions about what that school is going to look like in the fall as far as the music and arts program goes. And probably even phys ed. Because all of these outside things, I'm not here advocating for phys ed, but it gets lumped into our category.
Yeah, sure. It's of extraneous things.
Exactly.
Things that aren't really all that important if you stop and think about it.
You just need to ask some questions. It's your school. It's your child's education. Ask questions.
Okay. And the battle will continue. I mean, you guys are going to be fighting
Absolutely.
this forever.
Absolutely.
I wish
Hopefully not, but forever. Probably.
No doubt. I wish you the best in your efforts.
Thank you.
Truly.
You have supported this for sure. You support the arts.
I do.
And we appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming here, Mark.
Absolutely.
I'm going to quit while I was ahead and not say your last name again.
Fair enough.
I am going to. Despotakis.
Correct.
Thank you. And everybody have a wonderful weekend. And Jess wants me to remind you that I shall be appearing on WQED tonight at 7:30 on 4802, if you care to see me and the other folks. Okay? Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.